The rain beat against the towering windows of David Miller's Seattle penthouse office as he sat staring at his 8-year-old daughter, Emma. She was curled up in an oversized leather chair, tracing invisible shapes across the screen of her tablet. It had been 6 long months, half a year of unbearable silence, since Emma had spoken a single word. David's hands trembled as his mind replayed that night. A police officer had stood at their front door, hat in hand, his expression carrying news that would fracture their world forever. His wife, Rachel, had been driving home from her book club when a drunk driver blew through a red light. The collision had killed her instantly. From that moment on, Emma withdrew into complete silence, locking herself in a world where words no longer lived. "Emma, sweetheart," David whispered, his voice heavy and breaking. "Would you like to have lunch with Daddy today?" She didn't look up. Her big brown eyes stayed glued to the tablet, though he knew she wasn't really seeing whatever was on the screen. Only an hour earlier, Dr. Patricia Morgan, the third child therapist they had tried, had walked out of the penthouse with the same defeated look the others had worn. "Mr. Miller," she had said, packing her papers with obvious frustration, "your daughter isn't suffering from physical damage. She can speak. She's choosing not to. Without her cooperation, there's nothing more I can do." David's billion-dollar tech empire, Miller Industries, had given him the power to solve nearly any problem in life, through money, influence, or relentless drive. But this silence? It was a wall he couldn't climb, no matter how many specialists or therapies he threw at it. The sharp buzz of the intercom startled him. "Mr. Miller," came Jennifer's voice, his assistant. "You've got the board meeting in 10 minutes. Cancel it," David said instantly. "Sir, the quarterly reports." "I said cancel everything, Jennifer. For the rest of the week." His tone wasn't angry, just final. "My daughter needs me more than any meeting ever could." He walked over to Emma's chair and knelt down beside her. Her tiny frame looked even smaller against the leather seat. She wore a yellow dress Rachel had given her last Christmas. It was too small now, but Emma refused to wear anything else. "Look at Daddy," David said softly, gently tilting her chin toward him. For the briefest moment, their eyes met, and his heart shattered all over again. It wasn't just sadness he saw in those deep brown eyes, a reflection of his own. It was emptiness, the kind that suggested she had already given up on the world. "I know you miss Mommy," he whispered, tears threatening. "I miss her too, baby girl. Some days it hurts so much I don't even know how to breathe. But we still have each other. And Mommy wouldn't want us to stop living." Emma blinked once slowly, then turned back to the tablet. David felt himself drowning in helplessness. Every night, he lay awake asking the same questions. Was he failing her? Was there some other doctor out there he hadn't called? Some treatment he hadn't tried? The penthouse had become a museum of their lost happiness. Family photos lined the walls, Emma's laughter frozen in time. Her and Rachel baking cookies in the kitchen. Trips to Disneyland, where Emma wore her Mickey ears and smiled so wide her cheeks hurt. Birthday parties filled with her musical chatter. Now, only silence echoed through those same walls. His phone rang, the sound harsh in the stillness. His mother's number glowed on the screen. He let it go. He knew what she would ask. "How's Emma? Has she spoken? Have you found a better doctor?" The rain drummed harder outside, and something inside David shifted. He couldn't keep hiding with Emma in this tower of grief. She needed the world, even if she wouldn't talk to it. She needed to remember that joy still existed somewhere beyond their walls. "Emma," he said, rising to his feet and brushing invisible dust from his expensive suit. "We're going out." Her fingers froze over the tablet, just for a moment, but it was the first flicker of acknowledgement she'd given all day. "There's a little café I saw on Pine Street," David continued, forcing cheer into his voice. "They've got the biggest chocolate chip cookies you've ever seen. Bigger than your head, I bet." Emma slowly closed the tablet and slid off the chair. She moved like a ghost, silent, careful, as if making too much noise might break something fragile. David helped her into her small coat, his heart aching as he remembered how she used to chatter nonstop while getting dressed. She'd once filled every moment with questions, dreams, and laughter. Now she just stood still, letting him zip her jacket without a sound. In the elevator, their reflections stared back at them in the mirror doors. They looked like strangers, two people bound by blood and grief, but separated by an invisible wall. The elevator carried them down toward what neither of them knew would become the start of something life-changing. In less than an hour, they'd meet someone who understood silence in ways no therapist ever had. Someone who could speak with their hands when words failed. The lobby bustled with afternoon energy. Employees gave polite nods as David walked through, their eyes sliding toward Emma with that mix of curiosity and pity he hated. She had become a quiet legend in the building, the CEO's little girl who stopped speaking. "Ready for an adventure, princess?" he asked as he buckled her into the car seat. She didn't reply. But for the first time in weeks, she didn't turn away from him either. The Sweet Dreams Bakery sat tucked between a used bookstore and a dry cleaner on Pine Street. Its sunny yellow awning stood out against the gray Seattle sky. David had passed it dozens of times, never noticing. But today, it called to him. "This looks nice, doesn't it, Emma?" he said, unbuckling her seat. She studied the cafe with her serious brown eyes but gave no answer. Inside, a small bell chimed as they entered. The warm air smelled of vanilla, cinnamon, and fresh bread. Cream-colored walls displayed local art, while small wooden tables each held a sunflower and a vase. Behind the glass case, a rainbow of cookies, muffins, and cakes tempted every passerby. It was exactly the kind of place Rachel would have loved. "Welcome to Sweet Dreams," said a young woman coming from behind the counter. "I'm Sophia Rivera, and this is my bakery." She was in her mid-20s, with warm brown skin, dark jeans, and a white t-shirt beneath a flour-dusted apron. Her hair was pulled back neatly, her smile so genuine it lit up her entire face. "Hi," David said. "I'm David Miller. And this is my daughter Emma." Sophia bent down with kind eyes and waved. "Hello, Emma. That yellow dress looks beautiful on you." Emma pressed closer to her father's leg, hiding her face. "She's a little shy," David explained, embarrassed. "Easier than telling the truth." "That's perfectly fine," Sophia said warmly. "Sometimes the world feels big and scary." She guided them to a window table, then returned with menus and a coloring book with crayons. "Thought Emma might like this while you decide." David was touched. "Thank you. That's very kind." As Sophia worked behind the counter, David noticed she seemed to watch people's mouths more than their eyes. When someone called out to her from across the cafe, she didn't respond until they waved. He read the menu aloud, hoping to spark interest. "Grilled cheese, tomato soup, chocolate chip cookies, apple pie." "Nothing. My chocolate chip cookies are our specialty," Sophia said, suddenly at their table. "Made with brown butter and sea salt. Kids love them." "That sounds perfect," David said. "We'll take 2. Hot chocolate for her, coffee for me." Sophia smiled. "I'll make sure she gets the biggest cookie we've got." As she walked away, David noticed Emma's gaze following her. Not with pity, but with something he hadn't seen in months, curiosity. When Sophia returned, David's curiosity got the better of him. "Sophia, are you deaf?" she finished with a small smile, setting down the drinks. "Yes. I lost my hearing when I was 5 from meningitis." "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean." "Please don't apologize," she said lightly. "It's part of me. I read lips well enough, and I managed just fine." She placed the enormous cookie in front of Emma. "I made this one especially for you." For the first time in 6 months, Emma lifted her eyes to meet someone's. Sophia knelt beside her chair. "I hope you like it," she said, and then her hands began to move in graceful gestures. Sign language, David realized. Likely habit. Emma's eyes widened, locked on the movement of Sophia's hands. For the first time in months, something lit up her face. Sophia noticed and smiled. She continued to sign while speaking aloud. The secret ingredient is love. That's what makes good food taste better. Emma tilted her head, studying each motion with deep concentration. Then, to David's shock, she lifted her own little hands and attempted to copy a gesture. It was clumsy, uncertain, but it was the first time she had willingly tried to communicate since Rachel's death. David's heart pounded in his chest. Sophia's eyes sparkled with understanding. Would you like to learn? She asked, speaking and signing together. Emma nodded. She actually nodded. David gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. This means hello, Sophia said, showing her the simple wave. And this means thank you? Emma carefully mimicked both signs, her tiny face scrunched in concentration. When she got it right, Sophia clapped her hands. Perfect. You're a natural. And then, so slight, so fragile, Emma's lips curved into the smallest smile. David felt tears burn at the corners of his eyes. It was the first real smile he had seen from his daughter in half a year. He wanted to leap up, to shout with relief, but he was terrified of breaking the fragile, perfect moment unfolding in front of him. Would you like to learn more? Sophia asked Emma gently. This time Emma's nod came quick, eager. She pushed her giant cookie aside and leaned in, her full attention on Sophia's moving hands. For the next 20 minutes, Sophia taught her simple signs while the café bustled with customers coming and going. David sat frozen in awe, watching his daughter connect with another person for the first time in months. She picked up please, more, happy, and cookie. And then, just as they were getting ready to leave, Emma surprised them both. She signed thank you to Sophia, without even being prompted. You're very welcome, sweetheart. Sophia signed back with a smile before turning to David. She's so bright. Kids often learn sign language faster than adults. I can't thank you enough, David said, his voice rough with emotion. She hasn't communicated with anyone since her mom passed away 6 months ago. Sophia's face softened. I'm so sorry for your loss. Grief can trap us in a world where no one seems to understand. As they headed toward the door, Emma tugged at David's sleeve. She pointed at Sophia, then at herself, then raised her little hands in a questioning gesture. What is it, honey? David asked gently. Sophia caught on instantly. She's asking if she can come back and learn more. David looked down at Emma's hopeful face, and something shifted inside his chest. Would you like that? To come back tomorrow? Emma nodded eagerly. Then, before he could react, she walked right over to Sophia and wrapped her arms around her legs, the same way she used to hug Rachel. Sophia knelt, tears in her eyes, and patted Emma's back softly. We'll be here every day at the same time, she promised. I'd love to teach her more. On the way back to the car, David noticed something different in Emma's steps. They were lighter. She wasn't dragging her feet anymore. She clutched the paper bag with her untouched cookie like it was treasure, and glanced back at the bakery again and again. Did you have fun, princess? David asked as he buckled her into the car seat. Emma looked right at him and signed thank you. It wasn't spoken, but it was communication. It was hope. Driving home, David felt something stir inside him that he hadn't known in 6 months, excitement about tomorrow. The next morning, he walked into the kitchen to find Emma already at the table, practicing. She was carefully repeating hello and thank you, her little face serious with concentration. Good morning, sweetheart, David said as he poured his coffee. Ready to go see Sophia today? Emma looked up at him, nodded eagerly, then signed please. David's chest swelled. It was such a small gesture, but it felt like a miracle. During the drive to Sweet Dreams Bakery, he caught himself humming along with the radio for the first time in months. When the yellow awning came into view, Emma bounced in her seat with excitement. Inside, Sophia waved from behind the counter and signed hello. Emma's whole face lit up as she signed it back. Look at you, Sophia said warmly, coming around the counter. You remembered. You practiced, didn't you? Emma nodded proudly and showed off the signs she'd rehearsed that morning, each movement sharper and more confident than yesterday. I'm impressed, Sophia told David. Most people need far more repetition to remember signs so well. They sat again by the window, only this time Emma didn't hide. She sat tall in her chair, eyes bright, soaking in Sophia's every move. Today, Sophia said, sitting across from her, I thought we could learn some family signs. She showed Emma the signs for mother, father, family, and love. When she demonstrated mother, Emma's face grew serious. She copied carefully, her small hands trembling. This is how we sign I love you, Sophia said, crossing her arms over her chest, then pointing outward. Emma repeated the sequence several times, then turned to David and signed it toward him. I love you. David's throat closed with emotion. I love you too, princess, he whispered. Sophia quickly showed him how to sign the phrase back. His movements were clumsy, but Emma clapped her hands with delight when he managed it. This is incredible, David told Sophia, shaking his head in wonder. I've never seen her so engaged. Sign language can be freeing, Sophia explained. Especially for kids who feel like they can't express themselves in the usual ways. It's communication with your whole body. There's beauty in that. Over the next hour, Emma absorbed everything like a sponge: emotions, food, activities. Her hands moved quickly, eager for more. Then, out of nowhere, her soft, rusty voice broke the silence. Daddy? Both David and Sophia froze. Yes, sweetheart, David said carefully, terrified of scaring her back into quiet. I want to learn more, Emma whispered, her voice shaky from disuse. Tears filled David's eyes. Sophia beamed. We can learn as much as you want. Would you like to come back every day? Yes, Emma said. Then she signed please for good measure. David smiled through tears. I think we can arrange that. As the lesson continued, David found himself watching Sophia too. Her hands moved with such grace, as if conducting music only she could hear. When she laughed at something Emma did, her whole face lit up with joy. Can I ask you something personal? David said during a quiet moment. Of course, Sophia replied. How did you get so patient, so good with kids? Sophia smiled. I grew up with 3 younger brothers. When I lost my hearing, my parents made sure the whole family learned sign language. They wanted me to feel included, never less than anyone else. That's wonderful, David said. Not every family would do that. I was lucky, she admitted. But I also learned something else, that communication isn't just words. Sometimes the most important conversations don't have any sound at all. She nodded toward Emma, who was intently practicing a new sign. Your daughter already understands that. She's been telling you things all along, you just didn't know how to hear her. David thought of the little ways Emma had been reaching for him these past months. The way she'd slip her hand into his when she needed comfort. The times she'd silently bring him her favorite book. The way she'd curl beside him on the couch when he was at his lowest. You're right, David admitted softly. I just didn't know how to listen. Now you do, Sophia said warmly. When it was time to leave, Emma ran to Sophia and hugged her tight again. This time she looked up and signed thank you and I love you. Sophia's eyes misted. She signed back, I love you too, little one. On the drive home, Emma sat in her booster seat quietly chatting, her voice soft, uncertain, but real. She told David about her favorite signs, which one she wanted to learn next. Every word was like music. She's nice, Emma said suddenly. Yes, she is, David agreed, smiling. Very nice. Can we come back tomorrow? Every day, if you'd like. Emma grinned and practiced hello with her hands all the way home. That evening, David picked up the phone and called his mother for the first time in weeks. David? She exclaimed. How are you? How's Emma? Mom, he said, his voice trembling with joy. She's talking again. The silence on the line stretched, then his mother whispered. What did you just say? She's talking. And she's learning sign language. There's this incredible woman at a bakery who's been teaching her. And today, Emma spoke her first words in 6 months. On the other end of the line, his mother began to cry. Oh, David. Thank God. I've been so worried about both of you. We're going to be okay, Mom, David said, smiling through his own tears. And for the first time since Rachel's death, David actually believed it. After hanging up the phone, he found Emma in her room, standing in front of her mirror, practicing signs. Her small hands kept repeating "I love you," over and over, almost like she was saying it to her mother. Emma, David said softly as he sat down on the edge of her bed. She turned toward him, and for the first time in months, her eyes looked clearer. The fog of grief was still there, but it wasn't as heavy. I know you miss Mommy, David whispered. I miss her too. But I think she would be so proud of you for being brave enough to talk again. Emma crawled onto the bed beside him and leaned against his side. Do you think Mommy knows sign language in heaven? David's chest ached with love for this little girl. I think Mommy knows everything in heaven, he said. And I think she's really happy that you're learning something new. Emma was quiet for a long moment before looking up. Daddy? Yes, Princess? I like Sophia. She understands me. David swallowed. I like her too, he admitted, realizing as he said it that it was true in more ways than one. That night, after tucking Emma into bed, she signed good night and I love you before closing her eyes. David stood in the doorway longer than usual, watching her sleep peacefully for the first time in months. Tomorrow, they'd go back to Sweet Dreams Bakery. Tomorrow, Emma would learn more signs, maybe say more words. And tomorrow, David would see Sophia again. Her smile, her graceful hands, the way she turned communication into art. For the first time since his world had fallen apart, he was truly looking forward to tomorrow. 2 weeks into their daily visits, David realized he was arriving earlier each day, not only because Emma couldn't wait to see Sophia, but because he couldn't either. He told himself it was gratitude, that he just wanted to thank Sophia for what she was doing for his daughter. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. By now, Emma was speaking in short sentences, mixing words and signs together as naturally as breathing. She had already learned over 50 signs and made it her mission to teach them to David after dinner each night. Good morning, Sophia! Emma called out as they stepped into the bakery, signing the words at the same time. Good morning, my little star, Sophia signed back, speaking aloud so David could follow. You're early today. Daddy didn't have any meetings, Emma explained as she climbed into their usual chair by the window. So we came right after breakfast. David smiled at Sophia, feeling that familiar flutter in his chest when she returned it with a warm grin. I hope you don't mind us taking over your table every day. Are you kidding? You two are my favorite customers, Sophia said. Besides, Emma's been helping me with something very special. What's that? David asked curiously. Sophia disappeared behind the counter and came back holding a large poster board covered with pictures and words. I'm creating a visual menu for deaf customers who might not be comfortable with lip reading. Emma's been helping me test which pictures are the clearest. David leaned in, amazed. Each dish was represented by a photo, a written label, and a simple sign illustration. This is incredible, he said. You made all this yourself? Photography was my hobby before I opened the bakery, Sophia explained. So I thought, why not combine both passions to serve my community? Emma bounced in her chair. Show Daddy the sign for muffin, Sophia. As Sophia demonstrated, David tried to copy her movement but ended up watching her face instead of her hands. She carried herself with such confidence, such quiet determination. She had taken what others might call a limitation and turned it into strength, a whole business, a safe space for others. Sophia, David said carefully, can I ask, how did you start this place? That couldn't have been easy. Sophia settled into the chair beside them, something she had started doing more often in recent days. Honestly? It was terrifying. The banks didn't want to loan money to a young deaf woman with no restaurant experience. But I saved every penny from my kitchen job, and my family pitched in for the down payment. What made you want your own bakery instead of just working for someone else? She gave a small shrug. I got tired of being invisible. Kitchens are loud, shouting orders, constant chatter. I was always missing something, always trying to catch up. I knew I was good at baking, but I never felt like I belonged. Here, I get to build a space that works for me, and hopefully for anyone else who's ever felt like they don't quite fit in. David was struck by the matter-of-fact way she said it. No bitterness, no self-pity, just strength. He found it unbelievably attractive. You've built something amazing, he said sincerely. Thank you, Sophia replied softly. Then she turned to Emma. Ready for today's lesson, little star? Yes. I want to learn food science today, Emma said eagerly. Sophia began showing Emma signs for fruits and vegetables. Emma's face lit up at each new word, her little hands flying with joy. Daddy, try this one, Emma said, showing him the sign for apple. David tried, but Sophia reached over and gently corrected his hand. The light touch sent warmth up his arm. Like this, she explained, guiding his fingers. The sign comes from the idea of biting into an apple, right here. She touched her cheek lightly. I see, David said, suddenly very aware of how close she was. Their eyes met, and for a moment, it was hard to breathe. Sophia's cheeks flushed slightly before she leaned back in her chair. Can we learn chocolate cake? Emma asked, oblivious to the current between the adults. Of course, Sophia said, her voice a touch softer than usual. David spent more time watching Sophia than he did the lesson, how she bit her lip when concentrating, how she always turned fully toward people so she could read their lips, how she had a different laugh for every mood. When she went to help another customer, Emma tugged on David's sleeve. What is it, sweetheart? He asked. Do you like Sophia? She whispered loudly enough for half the bakery to read her lips. David felt his face heat. She's very nice. Yes. No, Daddy, Emma said with dramatic exasperation. Do you like her like you liked Mommy? David's breath caught. It was the first time Emma had spoken about Rachel without being prompted. That's complicated, honey. It's okay, Emma said, patting his hand with her small one. Mommy would want you to be happy. And Sophia makes you smile like you used to. David stared at her in amazement. When had his little girl grown so wise? Sophia returned with a plate of cookies just then. Careful, they're still hot, she said, setting them down. And then Emma, with her trademark honesty, looked right at Sophia. Do you like my daddy? David nearly slid under the table, but Sophia didn't flinch. Instead, she thought carefully before replying. Your daddy is a very good man, she said, both signing and speaking. He loves you so much, and he's learning a whole new language just to connect with you. Those are things I admire. It wasn't a direct answer, but the warmth in her eyes when she looked at David said more than her words. And my daddy is very nice, too, Emma insisted. He reads me stories and makes funny voices, and he practices signs just for me. Emma, David said gently, embarrassed. Maybe Sophia doesn't want to. It's okay, Sophia interrupted, smiling. She's just being honest. And I appreciate honesty. She looked directly at David. Your daddy is very nice, Emma. And very handsome, too. David's heart skipped. Had she really said that? I think so, too, Emma said matter-of-factly, then bit into a cookie. These are really good, Sophia. Thank you, little star, Sophia said, her gaze lingering on David just a little longer. The rest of the visit passed in a comfortable haze. David noticed how her hands moved even when she wasn't signing, like they couldn't help but dance. When it was time to leave, Emma gave Sophia her usual hug. But this time she whispered something in Sophia's ear that made her eyes widen. What did you say? David asked as they walked to the car. I told her you look at her the way Prince Eric looked at Ariel in The Little Mermaid, Emma said innocently. David groaned. Emma, you can't just say things like that. Why not? It's true, she said as she climbed into her booster seat. And I think Sophia likes it when you look at her like that. On the drive home, David couldn't stop replaying those words. Was he really that obvious? And if so, how did Sophia feel about it? That night, after Emma was asleep, David paced the penthouse restlessly. For the first time in months, his thoughts weren't heavy with grief. Instead, he was thinking about Sophia, her laugh, her patience with Emma, the way she had built beauty from struggle. Maybe there was space in his heart for someone new, without taking anything away from what he had shared with Rachel. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi David, this is Sophia. I hope it's okay. I got your number from the business card you left in the tip jar. I just wanted to thank you for bringing Emma every day. She's brought so much joy to the bakery. Also, I was wondering if you'd like to bring her to the farmer's market with me on Saturday. I'll be working a booth and thought she might enjoy seeing where I get my ingredients. No pressure. Sophia. David stared at the message for a full minute before replying. We'd love that. What time should we meet you? Her reply came quickly. Perfect. 9 a.m. At Pike Place Market. Wear comfy shoes, we'll be walking a lot. David smiled as he set the phone down. For the first time since Rachel's death, he was excited about a weekend plan that had nothing to do with grief counselors or doctors. Saturday couldn't come fast enough. When it did, the weather surprised them, sunshine breaking through Seattle's usual gray. David found himself paying more attention to his appearance, settling on a navy sweater and dark jeans instead of his usual business uniform. Daddy, you look nice, Emma said as she practiced her signs at the table. Are you trying to look handsome for Sophia? I just want to look presentable, David replied, though he couldn't deny Sophia had crossed his mind. You always look handsome, Emma said loyally. But today you look extra handsome. At Pike Place Market, Sophia was waiting at the entrance in a bright yellow sundress, her smile radiant, her canvas bag slung casually over her shoulder. Good morning, she signed and said as they approached. Perfect weather for market day. Good morning, Sophia. Emma signed back, then hugged her tightly. I've been practicing all week. I can tell, Sophia said, watching Emma proudly demonstrate her new signs. You're getting so good at this. David's chest warmed as he watched the two of them together. They moved like they had known each other forever. So, where do we start? He asked. Follow me, Sophia said with a grin. First stop, Mrs. Chin's produce stand. Best organic fruits and vegetables in the city. The market was alive with sound and color, flower stalls, fishmongers, street musicians. Sophia navigated it with ease. Mrs. Chin, she called, waving at an elderly woman arranging apples. I want you to meet my friends. Mrs. Chin's whole face lit up, and she immediately began signing as well as speaking. She's deaf too, Sophia explained. She taught me some of my very first signs. David watched in fascination as the two women carried on an animated conversation in sign language, their hands moving with lightning speed. It looked like a dance. What are they saying? Emma whispered. Mrs. Chin's telling Sophia about her new apples. David said, surprised he could follow. And Sophia's telling her about you. Mrs. Chin turned to Emma and signed something with a warm smile. She says you have beautiful eyes. Sophia translated. And she can tell you're very smart. Emma beamed and carefully signed thank you. Mrs. Chin clapped her hands with delight. As they walked on, Sophia explained where each fruit came from, how she used it in her baking. David mostly just watched her, her energy, her passion, her grace. The key to good baking, Sophia said, is starting with the best ingredients. You can't make something beautiful from things that aren't beautiful themselves. Is that your philosophy for everything? David asked. Sophia glanced at him, her smile soft. Pretty much. Surround yourself with beautiful things. And beautiful people. Their eyes lingered on each other, the air between them charged. The next stop was a spice stall. Emma was enthralled by rows of colorful jars. "Can I smell this one?" she asked, pointing to cinnamon. "Of course," the vendor said, opening it. "That's Ceylon cinnamon, the good kind." Emma inhaled deeply, her face lighting up. "It smells like Christmas." "That's exactly right," Sophia said with a laugh. "Smell is everything in baking. If it doesn't smell right, it won't taste right." Everywhere they went, people greeted Sophia, vendors waving, customers stopping to chat, some signing hello as they passed. "You're pretty popular here," David said. "I've been coming every Saturday for 3 years," Sophia explained. "This place brings people together like nowhere else." At the cheese vendor, while Sophia debated aged cheddars, David found himself watching the sunlight on her face, the quiet confidence in the way she carried herself. Then he felt a tug on his sleeve. "Daddy," Emma whispered, her voice low and serious. "You're doing it again," Emma whispered with a mischievous grin. "Doing what?" David asked, though deep down he already knew. "Looking at Sophia like Prince Eric." She giggled. David quickly glanced around to make sure Sophia was still occupied at the cheese stand. "Emma, we need to talk about when it's appropriate to make comments like that." "But I'm right, aren't I?" Emma pressed. "You do like her." David crouched down so he was eye level with his daughter. "Sophia is a wonderful person. She's helped you more than I can ever thank her for. I'm very grateful to her." "That's not what I asked," Emma said, stubborn as only an 8-year-old can be. Before David could answer, Sophia returned with a small bundle of cheese wrapped in paper. "Ready for the final stop? I want to show you where I get my honey." The honey stall sat at the back of the market, away from the busiest crowd. Behind the counter stood an older man with a long gray beard and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. "Sophia, my dear," he called warmly. "Right on time for the Saturday special." "David, Emma, this is Mr. Patterson," Sophia introduced. "He's been keeping bees for 40 years. His honey is the best in Washington." "Please call me George," the man said as he shook David's hand. "Any friend of Sophia's is a friend of mine." George showed Emma different types of honey, explaining how flavors change depending on the flowers the bees visited. She tasted wildflower, clover, and finally a blackberry blossom variety that Sophia declared her favorite. "This is my secret ingredient," Sophia said with a smile. "I use it in my cinnamon rolls and a few cakes." Emma licked the honey from her spoon and closed her eyes. "It tastes like sunshine." George laughed heartily. "That's poetry, young lady. You've got a gifted palate." While Sophia paid for her jars, George leaned closer to David. "She's a special woman, that one," he said quietly. "Sophia's been coming here since she opened her bakery. Never missed a Saturday, even when she was sick as a dog." She's not exactly my," David began. "Son," George interrupted with a knowing grin. "I've been married 43 years. I know the look of a man falling in love. Question is, what are you going to do about it?" David looked over at Sophia, who was showing Emma the sign for honey. "I don't know," he admitted. "It's complicated. The best things usually are," George said. "Doesn't mean they're not worth it." After the market, Sophia suggested lunch at a small café overlooking Elliott Bay. The autumn sun lit everything in a golden glow as they settled into a table outside. "This has been wonderful," David said sincerely. "Thank you for sharing your Saturday with us." "Thank you for coming," Sophia replied. "It's nice to share this place with people who appreciate it." Emma busied herself practicing the new signs she had learned, stringing them into little stories that mixed food with family and feelings. "Look, Daddy," she said, signing as she spoke. "Sophia gives me honey happiness." David repeated softly. "Honey happiness? You know that warm, sweet feeling when you taste Mr. George's honey?" Emma explained. "That's how Sophia makes me feel." David looked across the table at Sophia, who was watching Emma with such tenderness that it made his chest ache. "Sophia gives me honey happiness, too," he said before he could stop himself. Sophia's eyes widened slightly, and a blush colored her cheeks. I'm glad, she whispered, because both of you give me honey happiness as well. They sat there together in the sunshine, sharing sandwiches and laughter, watching boats drift across the bay. And for the first time since Rachel's death, David felt something shift. He could picture a future not defined by grief. A future that might, just might, include Sophia. For a few minutes, they just sat in a peaceful silence, watching ducks cut lazy paths across the still lake. Thank you for meeting me, Sophia said at last, turning toward David on the bench. Thank you for asking, David replied softly. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday all day long. Sophia drew in a deep breath, like she was gathering all her courage. I need to tell you something about myself. About why Marcus really left. David felt his stomach tighten. You don't have to. Yes, I do, Sophia said gently, shaking her head. If this is going somewhere, you deserve to know the whole truth. She looked out over the rippling water, her hands clasped tight in her lap. Marcus didn't just leave because dating me was too much work. He left because I couldn't give him something he wanted. David waited, sensing the weight of what she was about to share. I can't have children, she said quietly. I found out when I was 23. It's genetic, tied to the same illness that took my hearing. Marcus wanted a family, and I couldn't give him that. A rush of anger burned in David's chest, anger at a man he'd never even met. Sophia, I'm so sorry. For the diagnosis. For the way he treated you. I've made peace with it, mostly. She continued, her voice steady but soft. But I wanted you to know before we take this any further. I know you already have Emma, and she's wonderful. But if you wanted more children someday... David reached for her hands. Sophia. Look at me. She turned, and he saw the fear and vulnerability swimming in her eyes. First of all, David said firmly, what Marcus did was cruel. You deserve someone who loves all of you, not someone who reduces you to what you can or can't give them. Her eyes filled with tears, but she held his gaze. And second, David went on, his voice softer now. I've never wanted anything more than I want you to be part of our family. Emma adores you. And you've given her something I couldn't. You helped her find her voice again. And honestly, you've helped me find mine too. David, Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. I love you, he said. The words came easier than he expected. I love your strength. I love your kindness. I love the way you make Emma laugh. I love that you've built something beautiful with your hands and your heart. I love the way you move through the world with such grace. Tears spilled freely down Sophia's cheeks. I love you too, she said. I've been trying to fight it. Telling myself it was too soon, too complicated, too risky. But I can't help it. I love you, and I love Emma, and I can't imagine my life without both of you in it. David reached up, brushed the tears from her cheeks, and kissed her. It was soft, tender, filled with promise and hope. The kind of kiss born from two people who knew grief but were choosing love anyway. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia was smiling through her tears. So, what happens now? Now, David said, holding her hands, we figure it out. Together. All three of us. They walked hand in hand around the lake as the sun dipped low, talking about dreams and fears, about the future they could start to imagine. David told her about his company and the ways he wanted to use his success to make a difference. Sophia shared her dreams of expanding Sweet Dreams Bakery and creating more resources for the deaf community. I've been thinking, David said as they neared the end of their loop. You told me it was hard to get financing for the bakery. It was, Sophia admitted. But I managed. What if you didn't have to struggle with financing anymore? What if you could expand exactly the way you wanted without limitations? Sophia stopped walking, suspicion flickering in her eyes. David, what are you saying? I want to invest in Sweet Dreams Bakery, David said plainly. Not a takeover. A partnership. You'd have complete control, creative, operational, everything. But you'd get the capital to expand, hire more help, and build all the programs you've dreamed about. Sophia was quiet for a long moment, and David worried he'd pushed too far. That's generous, she said finally. But I can't accept something like that. It wouldn't be fair to you. Why not? Because. She bit her lip. What if this, us, doesn't work out? Then you'd be stuck in business with your ex, and I'd feel like I took advantage of your feelings. David smiled. Sophia, I'm not offering this just because I have feelings for you, though I won't pretend that doesn't play a part. I'm offering because Sweet Dreams is a good business, with huge potential, run by someone I trust completely. And, he added with a grin, if we do break up, then you're stuck with a business partner who thinks you're brilliant. Not such a bad deal. Sophia let out a shaky laugh despite herself. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it is, David said. You need capital. I have capital. You're building something beautiful and important. I want to support beautiful and important things. The rest? Just details. She studied him for a long moment, then asked softly, what would Emma think? David chuckled. Are you kidding? She's already planning our wedding. Yesterday she asked if she could be the flower girl. Sophia blushed. She told me something about that, actually. See? She's way ahead of us. By the time they reached his car, either wanted the evening to end. So, David said, leaning against the door. What do you say, partners? Sophia stepped closer, eyes shining. Then she kissed him, this time longer, more certain. Partners, she whispered when they broke apart. In business. And in life. In business and in life. David repeated, pulling her close. On the drive back, Sophia's hand resting in his, David felt a peace he hadn't known in over a year. This wasn't about replacing Rachel. It was about building something new, different, but just as precious. There's one more thing, Sophia said as they pulled up to the bakery. What's that? I want to meet your mother. And I want you to meet my family. If we're really doing this, I want to do it right. David's heart swelled. I'd love that. And trust me, my mom is going to adore you. How can you be so sure? Sophia asked. Because, he said, kissing her hand, you gave me back my smile. What mother wouldn't love the woman who made her son happy again? Sophia waved goodnight as she slipped inside the bakery, and David sat in his car a moment longer, hardly believing his luck. Tomorrow, they would tell Emma. Tomorrow, they would start planning the bakery expansion. Tomorrow, they would begin building a future together. But tonight, for the first time since Rachel's death, David went to sleep feeling like the luckiest man alive. Sophia told me you'd been learning to sign, but I didn't realize you were already this good. Maria said, watching Emma's hands move smoothly. Sophia's the best teacher in the whole world. Emma declared proudly. She really is, agreed a young man who looked like a male version of Sophia. I'm Miguel, her oldest brother. One by one, the rest of the family introduced themselves. There was Miguel, who was studying to be a teacher, Carlos, the mechanic with a loud laugh who immediately had Emma giggling with his silly jokes, and Tony, the youngest, a college student majoring in computer programming. Sophia's father, Roberto, shook David's hand with a firm grip and studied him closely. So you're the man who's been making my daughter smile like a teenager again. Papa, Sophia said with embarrassment. It's a fair question, Roberto replied, though his tone was more warm than stern. My Sophia doesn't smile like that for just anyone. Your daughter is extraordinary, David said honestly. She's helped me and Emma through the hardest season of our lives. Roberto's expression softened. Sophia told us about your wife. I'm very sorry for your loss. Thank you, David said quietly. Losing Rachel was devastating. But Sophia reminded us that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning how to love again. Maria wiped at her eyes. That sounds like something our Sophia would say. She's always had the biggest heart. The afternoon slipped by in a blur of laughter and warmth. Carlos taught Emma simple card tricks, while Tony showed David the apps he was designing to support the deaf community. Miguel and Sophia's parents asked David about his work and, gently but directly, about his intentions with their daughter. But it was all done with such humor and kindness that he never felt cornered. "I like your family," Emma whispered to Sophia during a quiet moment. "I like them too," Sophia whispered back with a smile. "And I think they really like you and your dad." As the family prepared to leave, Maria pulled David aside. "I want to thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" David asked. "For seeing Sophia as she really is," Maria explained. "Too many people focus on what she can't do, instead of celebrating everything she can. But you look at her like she's precious. And that means everything to a mother." "She is precious," David said simply. "I feel lucky every day that she let us into her life." "Take care of her," Maria said, patting his arm. "And let her take care of you, too. She needs to feel needed." After the family left, the three of them, David, Sophia, and Emma, sat at their usual table, exhausted but happy. "Well," Sophia said with a laugh, "that went better than I expected." "Your family's wonderful," David said. "Now I understand where you get your warmth and strength." "They really liked you both," Sophia admitted. "Miguel even texted me while Papa was talking to you. He said, and I quote, 'Keep this one. He's good people.' That's high praise coming from a big brother," David said with a grin. "The highest," Sophia confirmed. As they prepared to leave for the day, Emma surprised them by reaching for both of their hands. "I have something to say," she announced. They waited as she gathered her thoughts. "Before Mommy died, we were a family of 3, Emma said slowly. "Then it was just me and Daddy, and we were still a family, but it felt broken, like we were missing a piece." She looked at Sophia with serious eyes. "But now we're 3 again. And it doesn't feel broken anymore. It feels different than before. But it feels complete." Sophia knelt down and hugged her tightly. "Thank you for letting me be part of your family, little star. Thank you for wanting to be part of it," Emma whispered back. David watched his daughter and the woman he loved hold each other, and for the first time since Rachel's death, he felt real peace. From the ashes of tragedy, they were building something new, and it was beautiful.